In this video, I give you my advice on starting a retro toy collection. What to collect, where to start collecting those toys from, and also why to start collecting in the first place. So let's get going. Hello and welcome to Retro Toys TV, toy collecting and nostalgia from the 80s and the 90s. Today I'm giving you my advice on how to start a retro toy collection. It's actually interesting because I haven't started my collection yet. Now, you may wonder, how can I give you advice on something that I haven't done myself? Well, I've been planning to start a retro toy collection for some time, and actually this is one of the reasons this channel was born, in my desire to kind of document my collecting and how my collection grows over time. But I thought it useful to give you some advice on how I started planning out my retro toy collection. So to start with, it's actually understanding what you want to collect. Now, I decided I wanted to collect things from my childhood, and really the things I've had before, and also the things I really wanted as a kid, but wasn't able to get them for money, access, whatever you want to call it. So it's really down to you, it's down to your passions. Do you want to start collecting things you had as a kid before? Do you want to start collecting things you never had as a kid before but really wanted? Or are there some really specialist items that you could never ever get hold of as a kid? Say for instance, toys that were only available in the US if you lived in the UK, or toys that were only available in the UK and you lived in the US. I think also you've got to think of the nostalgia factor as well. It's nice to tap into that nostalgia, that really nice feeling you used to get when you start thinking about all the things you used to have as a kid. And if you can link that feeling to collecting, I think you're going to get a really nice buzz. Secondly, I think it's how. How do you start getting hold of those toys? How do you start looking for those bargains? Now, this is probably specific for the UK, but I'm sure there's some things that mirrors in the US and beyond. If you're in the UK, there are three places I would say you're going to have to go to if you want to start collecting toys. The first one is the obvious one, and that's eBay. You can find most things on eBay, from the really obscure to the really common. And just by typing in He-Man toys on eBay as an example, you can get hundreds and hundreds of hits, both here, based in the UK, in the US, and from other countries in the world. Now, my only advice about eBay is, yes, it's really good. The two kind of downsides are the price is always going to be more expensive than what you might find in shops or in car boot sales. But that's because eBay has all the seller fees and things like that. Plus, the prices are always slightly hiked on eBay anyway, in general, no matter where you're going. So bargains will be there, but there'll be a lot of people competing for them. And secondly, for eBay, it's sold as seen. You don't get a chance to feel the toy, to have it inspect it, to look at what damage or what kind of wear there might be. Now, any honest seller will obviously put that in their description, but likewise, you're not actually seeing the product with your own eyes. You've got to rely on what you're reading and what you see in the photos. The second place I would say is really good for toy collecting in the UK is car boot sales. The old traditional Great British car boot sale. Here you're going to find bargains galore. You are kind of beholden to fate. One day you might find nothing, and the next day you might find box loads of stuff to buy. So that's my only caveat, is you're not going to find everything every time you visit a boot sale. My advice is get out to those boot sales both in the winter and in the summer, and keep your eye out for those bargains where people are trying to clear out some of their junk, because I'm pretty confident you can get some retro toys at knockdown prices. And the last place I would advise you to start looking for retro toys is comic conventions. Now, there are hundreds of comic conventions growing all the time in the UK. So get out to your local conventions, because not only do you see celebrity guests, cosplay, movies and games and things like that, but you also get dealers who go there as well. You're going to have your local dealers and your local comic cons, but I also advise you to go to some of the big comic cons. So there's the Showmasters brand, which has the London Film Comic Con. It has comic cons now in Birmingham, in Glasgow, and all around the country. Likewise, the MCM Comic Con brand has the big convention in London, but it also has big ones in Birmingham as well. Now, these places all have really good selection of dealers that deal in retro toys. My advice is, if you go in Sunday afternoon when they're starting to pack up, you can get an even better deal, because they're wanting to shift stock really quickly. And finally, my last tip for collecting toys is an interesting one. It's the why. Why do you want to start collecting? I touched on it earlier. My reasons for collecting toys are really the nostalgic factor, to go back and start revisiting some of the things I had as a kid and remembering the good old days when we were playing with toys and the world was our oyster. Oh. But also for me, it's a challenge. I want to buy some of those toys I never had as a kid. I really want to go out and find those rare ones that I really wanted, but I just couldn't have. Question of the day. I'm interested to understand why you started your retro toy collection, or why you're thinking about starting a retro toy collection. Have you got any advice for other people about where to find bargains when it comes to retro toys? Likewise, if you're thinking of starting a retro toy collection, let me know what's driving you to buy that first retro toy. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe and ring the bell. Until next time, this channel is all about toy collecting and nostalgia from the 80s and the 90s. Keep collecting and we'll talk soon.